tears are so sadly. How can he tell her he loves her? Yes, he would give his heart gladly, but each day when she walks to the sea, she looks straight ahead, not at me. Dark and tan and young, in love with a girl from Ipanema was walking, and when she passes, he smiles, but she doesn't see. She just doesn't see. No, she doesn't see. But she doesn't see.
Mas que nada, sai da minha frente que eu quero passar. Hoje o samba está animado, o que eu quero é sambar. Este samba que é misto de maracatu, é samba de preto veio, samba de preto tu. Mas que nada, um samba como esse tão legal, você não vai querer que eu chegue no final. Mas que nada, sai da minha frente que eu quero passar. Pois o samba está animado, o que eu quero é sambar. Este samba que é misto de maracatu, é samba de preto veio, samba de preto tu. Mas que nada, um samba como esse tão legal, você não vai querer que eu chegue no final. Look at me, I'm as helpless as a kitten up a tree, and I feel like I'm clinging to a cloud I can't understand. I get misty just holding your hand. Walk my way, and 1,000 violins begin to play. Or it might be the sound of your hello, that music I hear. I get misty the moment you're near. You can say that you're leading me on, but it's just what I
Don't you notice how hopelessly I'm lost? That's why I'm fooling you. On my own. Would I wander through this wonderland alone, never knowing my right foot from my left, my hat from my glove? I'm too misty and too much in love. I'm just too misty and too much in love.
Are people still trickling in?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second annual Sierra Symposium, live from the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures in Los Angeles, California, and streaming nationwide. Please take your seats, as the program will begin momentarily. There will be no intermission, so we encourage you to use the restrooms as needed before we begin. We also kindly ask that you silence your phones and refrain from photography or recording during the program. Thank you and enjoy the show.
Surprise, surprise, couldn't find it in your eyes, but I'm sure it's written all over my face. Surprise, surprise, never something I could hide. When I see we made it through another day, then I say, ooh. To you. Now the night will throw its cover down on me again. Ooh, and if I'm right, it's the only way to bring me back. Ooh, 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 to you.
Somewhere, right now, sunlight hits the fourth floor. Bugs are crawling through the dirt. Animals move through the trees. The sea rolls onto the shore. A huge whale lifts its tail, then disappears under the waves. Above us, a hawk rides the wind. This is our world, with places and spaces we may not have been to yet. But we recognize them. We still know them. Because someone showed us. On screens, in stories, in pictures that stayed with us. And when we see them, we care. Stories teach us what to see, what to love, what to protect. And when people care, they do something. Some use science. Some use their voices.
Time now.
And some stand together, hand in hand. Protection starts with seeing. Participation starts when we show up. And what we leave behind becomes the world someone else will live in. Every generation gets a world the last one left behind. And every generation gets to choose what happens next. With the choices we make now, we will shape the future. Are you leaving us something safe and beautiful?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the Executive Director of the Sierra Club, Lauren Blackford.
Hello. Welcome to David Geffen Theater in the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures. I'm Lauren Blackford, Executive Director of the Sierra Club. Happy Earth Month. To everyone in the room today, thank you for being here. To the thousands of Sierra Club members, friends, supporters watching the live stream, thank you for being part of this. Thank you all. This place was built to celebrate the art of storytelling. And that feels right for today, because the story we're here to tell, the story of the world we're building for our children, may be the most important story any of us will ever help write. We called this symposium Environmental Utopia or Dystopia, the world we imagine for our children. And that title is a question on purpose, because we are living in a moment of big choices with big, future-defining consequences. And I don't need to list everything that's at stake. You know it. You see it in the smoke from fires that used to be unprecedented, but now seem to happen every year, right here in Los Angeles. You see it in the policy decisions that put corporate profits and special interests ahead of our health and well-being, ahead of our families and our communities, ahead of the air we breathe and the water we drink, ahead of the nature we cherish, and ahead of the rules and the protections that we depend on, ahead of our very lives. These are hard times. Change is hard, and some are trying to take us backwards. The work we've committed to is daunting. It is exhausting. But here's what I believe. Together, we have what it takes to meet the challenges and build a better world for all of us. We have the solutions. Clean energy is cheaper than fossil fuels, and it doesn't start wars. sadly relevant today. People across the country are stepping up to advocate for the world that we want. The Sierra Club is proud to be a leader in this powerful and growing movement. We've spent over 130 years protecting wild places and building a strong, caring, enduring community. And today that community includes millions of people rooted in chapters across all 50 states, Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico. People who show up in real life, at town halls, at utility board meetings, at the ballot, on the trails with their kids and their parents and their friends, and with their financial support. That community is our greatest strength. It's the reason I remain so hopeful even now. Today, we've gathered thought leaders that give voice to that hope. You're going to hear from champions who are using law, culture, science, and film to move us toward something better, toward justice, toward the healthy, safe, beautiful future and thriving planet that our children deserve. Our program will close with a conversation with Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi. As the first female executive director of the Sierra Club, I can't tell you how much it means to me to be hosting the first woman to lead a major political party in either chamber of Congress. Her leadership has been the very definition of vision, of power, and grace when the stakes are at their highest. She has shown us how together we can write a better story for the children and for all of us. We're honoring Speaker Pelosi as well as our Children's Trust, represented in today's symposium by our guest Matt Dos Santos, and a host of other visionary leaders tomorrow at the Skirball Center at our Trailblazers Ball Awards Gala. There are limited seats still available if you're able to join us. It will be a truly amazing night. You can learn more and purchase tickets at sc.org/trailblazers. And then on Saturday evening, we're recording Sierra Sessions, a unique live concert experience at the legendary Village Studios in West LA, which will be streamed on Earth Day. There are also very limited seats available for that. So find out more about Sierra Sessions, where to watch, and purchase tickets for the live concert at sc.org/sessions. Thank you again for being with us in this museum of stories. Let's make ours count.
Mi hija, Yahya, Netwat Yane Samuel Lopez, None Sangravil Vec Tungvet. Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Samuel Lopez and I'm a descendant of the first people that inhabited this land, the San Gabriel Band of Mission Indians, Gabrielino Tongva, and our tribe has been here since time immemorial. The territory of our people is what is commonly known as the Greater LA Basin, Orange County, and the 4 Southern Channel Islands. This place has long served cultures and sustenance and community for the first people who endure this in this land. Today and always we honor the enduring respect and resilience of Gabrielino Tongva people, past, present, and future. We acknowledge Tongva peoples as traditional land caretakers of Tavungar, in which we gather here together in community. And we honor and pay respect to Knufitam, Achihorom, and Yochinim, ancestors, elders, and relations, past, present, and emerging, and move forward in a good way on unceded Gabrielino Tongva land. Now, land acknowledgement is not simply just naming the past. It's about understanding our responsibility in the present. Because this land is not simply where we come from, but it is a place where we continue to belong so long as we breathe. To truly acknowledge and understand where we are means more than just words. It means action. It means supporting communities of First Peoples, not just in recognition, but in real material ways. It means protecting sacred places, honoring treaties and histories, and making space for Native voices and shaping the future. It also means reimagining our relationship with this place we now share. Because the world we are building together right now will be inherited, not in theory, but in reality, and by children who will live with the consequences of what we choose to do today. And the future that we all want is still possible. A future where cities like Los Angeles can be defined not by extraction or displacement, but by restoration and belonging. a future where many peoples can live on this land with respect, guided by the understanding that we are all connected. I carry my ancestors with me when I say that we are not here just to remember what was lost. We are here to protect what remains and to help grow what can still be. For those who came before us, for those who are here today, and for the generations of those yet to come, we owe this land more than acknowledgement. We owe it care and we owe it respect. And we owe future generations a world where they can stand here, breathe deeply, and know they belong. If we are to imagine a world worthy of our children, then we must be brave enough to change not only our policies, but our values. We must move from extraction to relationship, from ownership to stewardship, and from short-term gain to long-term care. So as you move through your conversations, your plans, and your actions, please remember that you are not starting from nothing because you are standing on land that has always known how to sustain life. The question is not only what the world you want to create, but whether you are willing to listen to the ones who have been caring for it all along. On behalf of my ancestors, my community, and the generations yet to come, I welcome you. May your work today and always be guided by respect, responsibility, and courage. Thank you. Awesh Gonecha.
Please welcome to the stage Matt Dos Santos, Co-Executive Director, General Counsel at Our Children's Trust, and one of this year's Trailblazers honorees.
Hello, welcome everybody. Thank you, Sierra Club, for inviting us here today, and thank you for joining us. Sorry, we're just looking at something really quickly. So as you know, I'm Matt Dos Santos, and I'm the co-executive director of Our Children's Trust. And today, we're here to talk about the future. We're leaving for our children. And I agree, we need to imagine this future collectively and clearly. Full disclosure, I'm on team Utopia, not team Dystopia. But before we can actually access any vision for the future, we need to ask a different question. Who has a seat at the table? Who gets to decide the future? And who actually holds power? Because the answers to those questions determine whether the future is just or imposed. Our Children's Trust was founded to answer exactly that question. Our cases work from a simple but radical idea that the promises of our laws and foundational documents mean nothing without clean air to breathe, safe water to drink, and healthy land to sustain life. We believe that children have power and rights now, not someday in the future. And if, as adults, we say we want to protect our children, then we must also be accountable to them. The lives of 2 billion children are threatened by climate change. According to UNICEF, over 1 billion of those children already live in countries with extreme climate threats, compounded, right? Heat, drought, air pollution, floods, water scarcity. And the children born today, they're projected to experience up to 7 times more climate catastrophes than those of us who are living right now. So for those of you who don't know, in 1980, you might experience a climate catastrophe somewhere in the world every 3 months. Today, the world has experienced them every 17 to 19 days. And when our children are our age, that's every 2.5 days. So the stakes could not be clearer. So the real question is, why are we still so stuck? At Our Children's Trust, we believe a central problem is this. Our laws and our culture treat children as the backdrop, seen but not heard. Children are everywhere in climate conversations, but they're the victims of catastrophe, witnesses to suffering, inheritors of a dystopian future. But if the future is theirs, why aren't they empowered to decide? We tell ourselves these stories. Children are too idealistic, too naive. They lack the tools to lead. Those stories aren't neutral. They justify this exclusion, systematic exclusion. And this exclusion is embedded in all of our laws, immigration law, family law, basically you name it. But I believe it's most pernicious where it's nearly invisible. In the 1980s, Ronald Reagan's administration fundamentally changed the way our government evaluates its decision-making. Through an executive order, all major government actions were required to undergo something called a cost-benefit analysis. Every dollar spent had to be justified by a dollar of benefit. On its face, it sounds reasonable. But here's the problem. The way cost-benefit analysis work today treats harms to children's lives as worth nothing. By applying a discounting rate, our government assesses that harms that occur about 20 years in the future are effectively valued at zero. So if a project generates profit today, but causes massive health problems and consequences to children later, the project still moves forward. That's not an accident. That's a culture choice, and it's one that an adult-centered culture made. Our case, Genesis v. EPA, argues that this approach discriminates against children. And our major win in Hawaii shows how quickly things can change when we change the equation and put children's lives at the center. Our cases change the law because they change the paradigm. By constitutionalizing climate harms, we put guardrails on government action, using children's health and safety as the measure of what is just. And often these cases are the very first time a young person has been able to tell their story to an adult with the power to do something about it. When children take this stand, their voices become tools for accountability. And our cases, when they reach trial, we win. Because it's indisputable, thank you. It's indisputable that our governments are harming children today. That's why these government defendants fight so hard to keep these cases out of court. In Oregon, a courageous district court judge, Judge Ann Aiken, said it plainly. The right to a climate system capable of sustaining human life is fundamental to a free and ordered society. And we know this intuitively, right? When the climate system collapses, so does democracy. By elevating young people through litigation, we don't just amplify their voices, we return them to their power. At our Children's Trust, we invest deeply in trauma-informed practices so that young people can show up authentically with real agency when they show up in court. They move from backdrop to main character. And this is their future, so it should start with their story. But you all know that this fight, it's hard, and not every case is gonna win, but every case we bring is a vehicle for change, regardless of its verdict. Courts give legitimacy to these stories. Media gives visibility. Communities move into action, and policy changes follow. Almost every court that we've walked into has gone on to say that the government actions we're challenging harm our youth plaintiffs. But then they throw up their hands and they say, climate change is too big, it's too complicated to address. But that's exactly why these courts exist, right? To protect minority rights when the political process dominated by the majority fails them. And the impact of these cases can't be measured in verdicts alone. Our theory of change is simple. When decisions are left to adults alone, we get short-term gains and long-term harm. When we center children's rights and lives, the cycle begins to bend towards justice. And legally, this makes sense. Children are the most vulnerable. They're the least politically powerful, and they're already leading in their communities. We just need to listen to them. The climate crisis is the single biggest driver of health for every child born today. This is devastating, but it's also an opening, a chance to reshape the future from this dystopia to a utopia that they choose for themselves. Young people are taking governments to court around the world, and we're winning. Juliana, the case we're most famous for, started a global movement. But recent victories in Montana and Hawaii have delivered historic results. In Hawaii, the impact was immediate. Transportation policies shifted away from highway expansion towards public transit, bike infrastructure, and zero-emission systems. That change only happened when the focus shifted from short-term convenience to the long-term needs of local children. So if I can leave you with one thought, it's this. If we don't want our children to inherit our mess, we have to empower them to shape the future. On Monday in Portland, Oregon, we're going to be standing with 22 young people before the Ninth Circuit in a case called Lighthizer v. Trump. This case challenges Trump's executive orders, fast-tracking fossil fuels, bringing coal back, and stopping renewable projects. If you can be there in person, great. But if you can't, you can support these courageous youth virtually. You can go to our website by following this QR code or going to ourchildrenstrust.org and register. You can watch oral arguments at the Ninth Circuit and then hear these young leaders speak at the community rally after in front of the courthouse. Stand with these young people, but also stand with the young people in your lives. Help spread their stories. Because if I've learned one thing from young people I've worked with, it's this. We have to stop asking young people to inspire us and start asking ourselves, what can we do to make their vision of their future real? Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you, Sierra Club. And thank you for the opportunity to co-imagine a future together.
Please welcome to the stage Erica Rosenthal, Director of Research, University of Southern California's Annenberg Norman Lear Center.
Good afternoon. I'm incredibly honored to be here with you today. My name is Erica Rosenthal, and I am the Director of Research at the Norman Lear Center, which is a research center based at USC's Annenberg School. To begin, I'd like to ask you to think of a scripted film or TV show with a climate story. So not a documentary, just don't yell it out, just think. So show of hands, how many people thought of a disaster film or something post-apocalyptic? Well, you're not alone. That's not surprising. In 2021, my research team surveyed over 2,000 people and asked this same question. And the most common answer we heard, drum roll, was The Day After Tomorrow, which came out way back in 2004. We did this research in 2021. People also mentioned the film 2012. Did anyone see that? It's about the Mayan apocalypse prophecy as a climate film. This had nothing to do with climate change. So what we see is that in the public imagination, climate change and disaster have effectively become synonymous. What do you think this does to people's belief that there's anything we can do about the climate crisis? At the same time, not all climate stories are visions of a bleak future. Maybe some of you thought of some of these. There's films like the Avatar franchise, Black Panther, and The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind that portray an alternative vision. Thriving societies with clean air and water, abundant green spaces, and technological progress that has not destroyed the environment. Importantly, these films are not just fantasies. They show us what these societies had to do right in order to achieve such a utopia. Why does this matter? Well, we know from decades of research that stories, including those told through pop culture and entertainment, have a real-life impact on knowledge, attitudes, and behavior. For more than 25 years, our work at the Norman Lear Center has been grounded in the fundamental idea that stories matter. We both study and shape the impact of media and entertainment on society. Our entertainment industry outreach arm, Hollywood Health and Society, or HH&S, is a free resource connecting creatives with experts to inform and inspire accurate stories. I lead the center's research arm, known as the Media Impact Project. We study the content, the audiences, and the impact of media narratives, as well as the science behind their power. As a case in point, how many people here have watched The Pit? Yay! Well, recently, my team studied the impact of the first season. This is a great full circle case study, not only because The Pit is an awesome show, but because our Hollywood Health and Society program consulted with the show on every single episode of the first season and continues to. Among other things, we found more than 1 in 4 viewers who saw the organ donation storyline said they sought more information about organ donation after watching the show. That's 3 times more often than people who did not see the storyline. Similarly, 1 in 3 viewers who saw the end-of-life storyline sought information about end-of-life planning. We've done dozens of studies of the audience impact of entertainment storylines addressing health and other social issues. But research on the impact of climate stories has lagged behind, largely because there are few substantial stories about climate change in scripted entertainment. As you see, it's hard to think of one. Of course, climate change is a health story too. In 2023, we did a qualitative study of audience responses to the Apple TV Plus series Extrapolations. Did anyone see that one? A scripted series focused on the near-term impacts of climate change, particularly in relation to human health. The majority of people we surveyed said that they talked to friends or family about climate change after watching the show. At the same time, many said they were interested in seeing content that shows climate change more in the background as an everyday reality. The idea that audiences don't want climate content is simply not based in reality. According to data from the Yale Program on Climate Change Communication, 3 in 4 Americans are at least somewhat concerned about climate change. Our own research found that nearly half of Americans are interested in seeing climate stories in fictional entertainment, and another third are at least open to it. We consistently find in our research that what audience want most is characters who reflect their values and concerns and make them feel seen and validated. The success of The Pit, which draws over 10 million viewers per episode, is really evidence of this phenomenon in action. Accurate, authentic stories are able to lean into complex issues and attract viewers. In the case of climate change, there's actually box office data to support this. Our partners at Good Energy developed a tool they call the Climate Reality Check, which asks 2 questions about a piece of content. First, does climate change exist in the story? And second, does a character know it? Working with researchers at Colby College, Good Energy applied this test to 220 popular films. And those that met one or both of the 2 criteria actually performed better at the box office than those that did not. But despite audience demand, climate change remains largely invisible in entertainment. With Good Energy, my team analyzed over 37,000 TV and film transcripts between 2016 and 2020. Of these, we found that only 3% of TV episodes and films mentioned any of 36 climate-adjacent keywords. And when we look for mentions of climate change explicitly, it's less than 1%. When extreme weather events are mentioned in scripted entertainment, which is actually quite a bit, these are only linked to climate change about 10% of the time. Let that sink in. Extreme weather events are talked about a lot, but very rarely actually linked to climate change. And when climate-related topics are mentioned, they're rarely discussed alongside actions that people can take. We're currently doing an in-depth analysis of substantial climate storylines in scripted content. We're finding preliminarily that the majority of these storylines begin with a threatening emotional tone. This is backed up by our interviews with writers who say they often gravitate toward fear-based stories, or they have a hard time seeing how climate change can fit into their preferred genre like comedy or horror. Research shows that fear-inducing messages can be paralyzing, making problems feel intractable and reducing people's self-efficacy, their confidence in their ability to take action. Of course, there's no one right way to tell stories that bring the reality of climate change into focus. But here are some opportunities to consider. First, illustrate the present impacts. What's happening in the here and now? When climate change is viewed as a far-off problem, it can reduce urgency. One way to do this is to make it personal to the audience by addressing the health impacts of climate change or its effects on children. Climate change is everywhere, something we're all living with, like a chronic health condition. Thus, not every climate story needs to focus on the acute impacts. There's actually some evidence that brief mentions and visuals can move audiences even when climate change is not explicitly mentioned. If dystopian stories are your jam, that's okay. But whether you're telling dystopian or utopian or more realistic stories, consider showing the audience how we got here, what systems had to fail or be repaired in order for society to reach this point. We often hear from writers that they want to tell these stories, but sometimes feel intimidated. They feel that their story needs to solve climate change and they feel they're ill-equipped because they're not climate experts. Creatives do not need to solve climate change. They just need to resolve the story. Writers also tell us they're worried about politicization, polarized audiences, or unsure whether they'll have studio support in telling these stories. as we've seen, these fears are just not backed up by audience data. Whether you're not sure where to begin or are just seeking support to ground your stories in science, turn to the experts. There are many organizations that provide advisory services and other resources to support creatives around climate storytelling. These include our Hollywood Health and Society program and the Sierra Club. The Sustainable Entertainment Alliance has a listing of several others on their website. These include our partners at Good Energy, NRDC, Reality of Change, and RARE. If you'd like to learn more about our Lear Center research on climate stories, you can scan this QR code or visit learcenter.org/climate. Please feel free to reach out to me directly, or you can follow us on Instagram at Lear Center. Thank you so much to the Sierra Club for the invitation to speak with you today. If you'd like to join the movement, there's another QR code that I believe they're going to put up on screen that will allow you to donate, volunteer, become a member, or stay involved in other ways. Thank you so much.
Now joining us is award-winning documentary filmmaker and environmental activist Rebecca Tickell, creator of the acclaimed environmental documentaries The Big Fix, Kiss the Ground, and Common Ground, which was the winner of the Human Nature Award at the Tribeca Film Festival, and one of last year's Trailblazers honorees.
Can storytelling regenerate our world? My name is Rebecca Harold Tickell. I'm a filmmaker and an environmental activist. When I was 9 years old, I starred in a Christmas movie with Sam Elliott called Prancer, about a little girl who finds one of Santa's reindeer. You could say I discovered the power of storytelling at an early age.
You tricked me into this.
It was an animal with an easier hope, and that's the truth. I think he's dying.
I can't help
But I
it.
tell you, he's one of Santa's.
Then call Santa and let go of my car.
Probably couldn't help him anyways. Doctors are just liars. They never make anyone better.
The producers were looking, thank you. The producers were looking for a girl who spoke her mind and was willing to stick up for what she believed in. I learned that's a good quality to have in life. It comes in handy many times later in my career, believe me. I eventually gave up acting in my 20s when the roles being offered were mostly horror movies. In one movie, I was a succubus that sucked the souls and blood of men, which one might think would be cathartic for me as a young woman in Hollywood. But instead, as I found myself covered in buckets of goo, giving birth to a giant alien squid baby on the basement floor of a monastery, I realized it was time for a career change. And then, 21 years ago, I saw an inconvenient truth. And in storytelling terms, that was my inciting incident. I became aware of the existential threat of climate change caused by too much carbon in our atmosphere. I made the transition to documentary filmmaking with my filmmaking partner, Josh Tickell, and since then have made 20 films on environmental issues. Many of them were about finding ways to reduce the amount of carbon we put in the atmosphere and reducing our dependence on oil by using renewable alternatives. Then we had a breakthrough shift in our thinking. We realized the most important solution to climate change was not getting any attention, and it was right under our feet. We learned about regenerative agriculture. We stopped making films about oil, and we started making films about soil. We learned when making films about a subject that most people think is dull as dirt, It helps to have celebrities like Woody Harrelson, Jason Momoa, Rosario Dawson, Laura Dern, and Donald Glover to help get our message out to the mainstream. Regenerative agriculture uses the magic of photosynthesis to pull carbon from the atmosphere and store it in the soil as a natural carbon sink. No amount of reducing carbon emissions will address the need to draw down the 1,000 gigatons of legacy carbon in our atmosphere. Regenerative agriculture is a way of growing food that puts carbon into the ground and builds soil. It leaves the soil intact so life can thrive. It uses a diversity of plants instead of monocrops. It integrates animals directly into crop fields and orchards. It doesn't use herbicides or pesticides. It protects the health of the farmers who grow our food. It promotes and enhances an ecosystem's ability to be resilient in the face of disasters such as fires, floods, and droughts. It can help restore water cycles. It can transform deserts into fertile landscapes. It produces more nutritious food. It can revive local economies. And it's the only carbon capture technology that also feeds us. We made a trilogy of films about regenerative agriculture. The first film in the trilogy was Kiss the Ground.
So on a scale from hunky-dory to we are screwed, where do you think we're going to be in 50 years?
I would honestly say
Pretty well. Pretty.
Yeah, for sure.
I think we're going to be.
Yeah.
I would say if we don't do something now.
As you can see, when people think about climate change, they think that we're in trouble. And we are. But Kiss the Ground offered a solution, and that solution is soil. For most people, Kiss the Ground was the first time they'd heard about regenerative agriculture. It was first screened on Netflix during the pandemic, back when people were stuck at home watching Tiger King, and it struck a nerve. It found a huge audience. It showed how people were hungry for a hopeful story around climate change. Even King Charles reached out and told me it was his favorite movie and how he shared it with over 1,000 people. Our next film in the trilogy was Common Ground. In spite of how divided our country has become, when it comes to healthy soil, we can all find common ground. These films are not just about carbon sequestration. They're about the problems of our food system and how to solve them. Not everyone might be in agreement about climate change, but everyone is in agreement about wanting healthy food. And regenerative agriculture creates healthier food.
We're facing really daunting problems right now. Each and every one of us, we need to ask the question, what's it going to cost me not to change? It's going to cost you your farm. It's going to cost you your grandkids. Is it worth it?
Most Americans are not fully conscious of how our food system is creating a Category 5 hurricane of disaster in everything that we care about. We have a system that's hurting consumers, that's hurting our environment, that's hurting independent family farmers, that's hurting animals, that's hurting farm workers. It's just a morally bankrupt system, and we have to change it.
The very way we're growing food is threatening our future ability to grow food.
Thank you. These films are actually very personal to me. I come from a farming family. I've personally witnessed the health problems faced by farmers today. Illnesses such as Parkinson's, ALS, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma are often referred to as farmers' diseases. My own family has suffered from these diseases caused by exposure to the toxic chemicals of industrial agriculture. Farmers in the United States have a 5 times higher suicide rate than any other profession. To change such a dire situation, people need to unite. No matter what their political affiliation is, this is an issue that brings people together. I call this clip, Mr. Harrelson Goes to Washington.
One thing's for certain, each of us can do something for soil health.
I forgot my suit. I apologize. I feel like I'm underdressed for this event. I'm not a big believer in the political process that exists in this country, but if you are the people who can make a change, well, by God, now's a good time. I mean, the world needs it. The planet needs it. The farmer needs it. The soil needs it. It's high time to finally get regenerative agriculture. Let's prioritize the farmer.
Our first 2 films created real momentum for regenerative agriculture. They were directly responsible for changing farm policy and raising billions of dollars. Our final film in our trilogy, Groundswell, soon to be released, documents that momentum. This one is narrated by both Demi Moore and again by our old friend Woody. And Groundswell tells the story of how regenerative agriculture is becoming a growing movement all around the world. We filmed in 12 countries, showing how regeneration is restoring the land, improving food systems, and drawing down carbon from the atmosphere on a global level. Oh, one quick thing. At home, if you're watching, you'll only be able to hear the audio from this. This film hasn't come out, and you here in the audience will be the very first people to ever see this.
As people have fled climate chaos and conflicts, northern Uganda has become a haven for refugees.
Gimana wewe South Sudan lo pai lueng.
Entian lo mo wa bino kan yen luen nyong ko mo du cha wen.
Gimuti me chwar mame wa en luenya. Gichielo dana chiela kimundugu.
How do we show that a refugee camp can actually be a place of regeneration?
We did a design to figure out what do we want. First thing we need to do is control the water. In West Africa, they're called demi-lunes, half moons.
The open part, it is facing up the slope.
Some people call them smile berms. So we say, okay, the tip of the smile always needs to be pointing up. We have to smile. When it does rain, these systems are welcoming that rain and really banking that water in the soil. Apart from a few native trees, all of this growth is within the last 18 months rain fed.
The principles of regeneration could offer hope to the nearly 1 billion people in sub-Saharan Africa.
I have seen endless examples where all of this restoration is happening and all of it's different, but it's a movement that is undeniable and is really connected.
Farm by farm, we can actually heal that band that covers the Great Green Wall. By integrating regenerative practices, we're actually stopping the Sahara Desert from inching southward to bring that desert back to life.
The Great Green Wall for me is something that is vital to our survival, to our growth in our future.
These films we've been making about regenerative agriculture have had a measurable real-world impact. They're proof of the power of storytelling to actually change the world.
In 2020, when Kiss the Ground, the first film in this trilogy, was released, there was less than 5 million acres of land in regenerative agriculture in the United States.
I'll make you a deal. I won't give up, and neither should you.
In 2023, when Common Ground, the second film in this trilogy, launched, brands started committing to going regenerative. And third-party certifications began to ensure that regenerative products mean that carbon is going into the soil.
Within 3 years, we transitioned 30 million acres from conventional to regen. This is a real movement. It's happening right now as we speak.
Today, regenerative agriculture has grown to 250 million acres globally. But to reach the tipping point where regenerative agriculture truly takes hold, we need to regenerate 1 billion acres globally. That's about 10% of all agriculture on planet Earth. It's a big mission, and it's well underway.
Agriculture gave birth to our civilization, and now agriculture might be our best way to save it. There are many reasons I choose to tell these kinds of stories. Here are two of them. You can show this on the live stream. Like I said at the start, I'm a filmmaker and an activist, but I'm also a mother. These two redheads are my kids, Athena and Jedi. And yes, we took them with us on a global film shoot where we made Groundswell. And you can see my son Jedi running to the bathroom when we all got typhoid in India. But it was all worth it. They witnessed many of the problems in the world firsthand, but they also witnessed something else. They witnessed stories of resilience, stories of cooperation, stories of love, and most importantly, stories of hope. The world that they will inherit from us will be determined by the stories we tell today. I urge everybody to use the power of storytelling to spread the word about how we can regenerate our health, our communities, and our planet. I urge everyone today to take action, however you can. And one of the ways that you can do that is by supporting the work of the Sierra Club, of which I am a proud card-carrying member, and I encourage you all to do the same. Thank you.
Please welcome back to the stage Sierra Club Executive Director Lauren Blackford.
So now you can see why I'm hopeful, even in these tough times. Young people taking their government to court to demand a livable future. Research showing us exactly how stories can shift what an entire culture believes is possible. The ability of film and art to turn something like regenerative agriculture considered by many a fringe idea, into a global movement. That's the power of conviction when it's anchored in truth and shared through story. Programming like today's symposium is one of the ways the Sierra Club connects audiences across the country with leaders and change makers who are opening new paths for our movement. We bring these conversations to you, whether you're in the theater or watching the live stream, because when we are exposed to bold ideas and inspiring stories, it expands the horizons of what's possible, and it moves us to action. If what you've heard today has moved you, you can help us to keep doing this work and growing our movement with similar programming. If you're able, please make a gift using the QR code on the screen right now, or for those of you live streaming, the link on your screen. And consider making it a monthly sustaining gift, which goes even further in its impact. Thank you, truly, for giving us your afternoon, your attention, and your energy. Now we have one more conversation ahead of us, and it's a big one. To lead the conversation with our keynote guest, I'm thrilled to welcome to the stage a 9-time Emmy-winning journalist whose career has been defined by sharp, fearless interviews with the leaders shaping our world. She is the anchor of the Rush Hour on Spectrum News 1 and the host of LA Stories, where she spotlights the people and ideas transforming our communities. Please welcome another groundbreaking, amazing woman, Giselle Fernandez.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here. I was invited last year to moderate the discussion with Dr. Jane Goodall, and I just have to say it was one of the honors of my life. And this year is no different. I'm equally honored to have been invited back to moderate a discussion with another titan in environmental justice. I just want to let you know it was that important to me that I be here. I've just recovering from foot surgery, so I'm wearing my Uggs. I mean no disrespect, but I was told by the folks back there it's a very Gen X thing to do. I'm just very cool, so I hope you'll see it in that light. There is a phrase that gets thrown around a lot in politics: legacy. Tonight, this is not an abstraction. Our honoree today has represented San Francisco in the U.S. House of Representatives since 1987, nearly 4 decades of public service. She became the first woman elected Speaker of the House, not once, but twice. You can applaud, please. This is our church today. Thank you. And she used that gavel to pass what scientists and economists agree is the single most consequential climate legislation in American history. And that, of course, was the Inflation Reduction Act, which committed $369 billion to clean energy, slashed carbon pollution projections by 40%, and put 9 million clean energy jobs within reach without a single Republican vote. It commands that kind of accolade. I mean, her environmental work stretches back more than 35 years, from 1989 Pelosi Amendment, global tool for assessing the environmental impact of international development finance, to the 2007 Energy Independence and Security Act, which raised vehicle fuel efficiency standards for the first time in 3 decades. She also established the Select Committee on the Climate Crisis. She led a congressional delegation to COP25 in Madrid when the first Trump administration pulled out of the Paris Agreement, to tell the world Congress has not given up. Now she is in the final chapter of her congressional career. In November 2025, she announced she will not seek re-election and she will retire January 2027, marking the end of an era. And she leaves at a moment when everything she built is under assault. In February of this year, the Trump EPA rescinded the 2009 endangerment finding. This is the legal cornerstone of America's ability to regulate greenhouse gases under the Clean Air Act, calling it the largest deregulatory action in American history. The Paris Agreement abandoned, coal back on the table. The scientists, as you all know, say we are running out of time. So who better to sit with us tonight at the Sierra Club Symposium on the world we imagined for our children than the woman who fought harder for that world than perhaps anyone in the history of the United States Congress, and continues to do so today with deep conviction and service, particularly for our children and future generations. Please welcome Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi, the Sierra Club's 2026 recipient of this year's Lifetime Achievement Award. That welcome should tell you everything you need to know this afternoon. Welcome, Speaker Pelosi.
Thank you.
The Sierra Club has particular important meaning to you from way back when. Tell us about this special connection.
Well, I will. I'm so honored to be here with all of you because of our shared values and because of the urgency of now in terms of saving our planet. Giselle, it's really a treat for me to be interviewed by you. I was looking forward to it, and thank you for your kind words. Lauren Blackford, congratulations to you on your leadership of the Sierra Club. That's so important. And as I tell you the story, I go way back into the Sierra Club. So first met Carl Pope, who would become the executive director of Sierra Club during the Carter years, probably before most of you were born. Maybe before your parents were born, but nonetheless. And we were doing environment. We were doing environment then. Then all of a sudden I get elected to Congress, and the Sierra Club approached me and said, we want you to carry this very special legislation. We would name it the International Environmental Protection Act. Now I'm a brand new member of Congress, but I was, shall we say, on the right committee for this to happen, banking committee, because it was a banking act. And what the law did, and I take the time to tell you this because it made a really big difference, says she modestly. What it did was it said none of our U.S. representatives on any of the multilateral development banks could vote for a project of that World Bank, sorting World Bank, Asian Bank, African Bank, the list goes on, unless an environmental impact statement was made and made public to the indigenous people of the region, as well as to the whole world. Well, the banks thought, why are you doing this? We are all very environmentally conscious. Yes, but you may be, but we don't know about it because we don't see it in your actions. It was a big fight. And why it's, shall we say, connects to now is that one of the reasons we were able to pass it. Now, I'm a very junior member of Congress. I had to fight the chair of the committee, the chair of the subcommittee, the chair of the full committee, the White House, because President Bush was president, George Herbert Walker Bush was president. And so in any event, what, as luck would have it, Time magazine came out with a cover story of this: fires in the Amazon are as big as the whole United Kingdom. I was assuming a big skull and bones with fire in the background on the cover. So I was useful. The president of the World Bank, who was a lovely guy, but oblivio, he said, I don't know why she's making such a fuss about climate change. No, we didn't call it climate change. By the snow's melting, we can just go there and develop. What? We'll just go there and develop as the snow is melting, the environment is changing. So they gave us two ammunitions. In fact, the president of the bank said, I wish you would stop criticizing me. I said, I'm not criticizing you. I'm just quoting you. So anyway, it passed as part of something called another global banking bill that gave low-income loans to poor people. So they went together. And it was then became known as the Pelosi Amendment. I had to fight the Democrats even after that because they'd say, we could do so much more development if only for this nuisance. Nuisance. I said, you're calling me a nuisance. Okay. Yes, it is a nuisance, but it did make a difference. And we had collaborated with the indigenous people. They coming to my office all the time from their places of origin, and I would visit them every place I went, because so much was being done with the cooperation of the United States government, with embassies facilitating investments in things that were harmful to the habitat of these people. And they've said to me, you couldn't possibly understand what our habitat means to us unless you were one of us, because it's not just a place to live. It's where our elders are buried. It's holy land to us. And they're drilling or mining or damming or whatever it is. So we saved a lot of projects from the hand of the banks. And then they got used to it and started bragging about how green they were.
Yeah.
But it all started with the Sierra Club. They had the original idea. So therefore, I'm pretty happy to be back here all these years later.
Well, and you
President
called
Bush happily signed the bill, I have to say. He was a good sport.
you were a force of nature from the very beginning, and you called climate change the existential threat of a lifetime way back then, before it was safe to do so. I do want to ask you, because you were one of the few American leaders to attend the funeral of Jane Goodall. We sat here last year. She was receiving the very same Lifetime Achievement Award from the Sierra Club that you are today. And she said this. It was a wonderful, wonderful conversation. I know you admired her greatly. She said, every single day we do nothing about climate change is a day we steal from our children and future generations.
Right.
You have said it's the children that fuel your advocacy. Talk to me about what Jane Goodall inspired in you.
Yes, well, Jane Goodall, I was mentioning to Giselle earlier that when I was a young mom, I had 5 children. The oldest was 6 and the youngest was not 1 yet. And I met Dr. Leakey. He came to San Francisco to speak at a symposium. It was a symposium on Teilhard du Jardin. It was a symposium on evolution, but recognizing that evolution, it wasn't about creationism, it was about evolution. So we had dinner with him at a friend's home who became a big supporter of the Leakey Foundation, and I was invited to be on the board of the Leakey Foundation. I thought anybody else would be better than me because I had 5 children to take care of, but nonetheless, they invited me to be on the board. And it was such a joy, and lo and behold, it thrust us. My family, my kids would always say, who is it today, Mom, the Democrats or the Leakey Foundation? That was how they saw my outside life. But the not to be partisan, but that's what my kids would say. I'm just telling you. So anyway, we had Jane and Diane Fossey and Brute at our home for fundraisers. That was a regular thing. This young woman, Jane Goodall, having the courage to go into the wild and talk to primates, well, to the gorillas. But we admired her so much. She was so young, she was so courageous, and she was so successful. She was so successful. And I was mentioning to Giselle earlier that over the years, she, in her concern for nature, it was bigger. She talked about climate later, but in the beginning it was environment and that, and then it became a climate issue, and then it was anti-war. Like when U.S. went into Iraq the second time, the beginning of this century, she was out there against what they call the bunker busters, these very powerful weapons, of course, anti-nuclear and the rest. So she saw everything in nature as connected, from her talking to the chimpanzees and in that environment to saving the planet for the children. And we all loved her very much. She was so brilliant, effective, warm, and human.
Yeah.
And even though she could speak to the chimpanzees. So I was mentioning that I saw it when I was at the funeral. I couldn't go after. So I'll tell you what this is in a minute. I couldn't go after because we had votes and stuff. So the family took me to see the family separately, and it was so beautiful to see how her children, her son and her children carried on her beautiful values and the rest. She was a very spectacular person, and that she received this award last year and you had the fun of interviewing her makes it a very special occasion for me to be here this year as well.
And, you know, a environmental titan as you are as well. When did this become your fight and why? And you said you even had to fight Democrats early on to kind of buy
Well, they were nice. They weren't anti climate. They were just, it was a new thing to them. I was introducing them to something new. I went to my first, I'll sound very old to you. My kids say, don't say that, you'll sound old. I am old. So I went to my first Earth Summit, which would later become the COPs, but first Earth Summit in 1992. Everybody was there. It was, you know, the Dalai Lama spoke about the climate. The Dalai Lama is the first Nobel Prize winner who had in the testimonial awarding him the Nobel Prize, the environment. So it's interesting how it all sort of comes together. And then I mentioned many of them after that as well. But so it started really, I guess, with that. Well, first of all, I come from San Francisco, which is a hotbed. Well, our state is a hotbed of environmental sensitivity and concern. We also saw the environment as a justice issue. The environmental justice issue is tremendous. It affects children so directly. And I've had hearings over time with people coming from like Louisiana, where they bring the little children bring their dolls, showing that what happens to babies when the environment is so terrible. So it's a major justice issue. And I was listening to the program before and very encouraged by all of that coming together there for the children, because the future belongs to you all, to the children, belongs to the children, and we have a responsibility. So I saw the climate issue 4 ways. First of all, it was a health issue. Clean air, clean water, all of that. One of my volunteers said, I'm going to be involved in politics as long as I drink water and breathe air, because it's a public issue, shall we say, not to sound political. It's clean air, clean water, a health issue. It's an economic issue. We want to be first in the world, or at least compete well on green technologies, and we don't want to be left behind in that regard. So we want to be in the forefront of this. It's also a security issue. I've visited places to see about migration to our country and how we can be helpful. Is it an economic issue? Is it a violence issue, a nonviolence issue? And what I found out, a lot of places, it was a climate issue. The drought or other floods, whatever it is, caused people to leave because they couldn't farm, so they couldn't eat, and they didn't have a habitat. And then it becomes a security issue, because if there's competition for habitat and competition for resources, then you have conflict. When I brought delegations to Alaska to see what was happening there with the melting and all, some of the people there told me that their elders, so say I started doing that 30 years ago, they told me that 30 years before that, their elders were telling people that they could see a change in the fauna and the flora and the habitat of their area. When they told it to the scientist said, that is anecdotally interesting, but scientifically insignificant. What we realized later is those were the scientists for the oil companies. They weren't scientists for science. They were science for oil. But imagine that they could see in their own experience, of course, what became rampant later. So I guess I guess I have to say that my involvement with the International Banking Environmental Protection Act, follow the Sierra Club, was the introduction to me that enabled me to lead the way on certain issues in a way, get to know the indigenous people, whom, as I say, every place I go, I want to meet the indigenous people and learn from them. Many of them took risks to speak out, took risks. It was dangerous for them to speak out, but they did. And in many cases, we were able to be helpful, but not all. It's still a challenge.
Senator Ed Mackey called you a Climate Action Hall of Famer, a environmental legend.
Who said that?
Ed Mackey, Senator Ed Mackey.
Oh, Ed Mackey.
And listen,
kamikaze. I don't know. I don't like the destination of that, but anyway,
a Hall of Famer, nevertheless. The Inflation Reduction Act passed without a single Republican vote. You engineered that just milestone historic climate legislation. What almost killed it and what got it across the line?
Well, let me just back up a little bit from it. We had, when I became speaker, I actually was elected 4 times, but in 2 chunks. When I first was elected, this was my flagship issue, climate. I wasn't, children were my motivation from leaving the kitchen to go to the Congress, but the climate was related to the children and their future and the air they breathe and the water they drink. So I established this select committee on the climate challenge. And Ed Markey actually was the chair of it in the first 2 terms of it. In the second 2 terms, Kathy Castor from Florida chaired it. Ed had gone on to the Senate. She chaired it. And we had hearings, we had meetings constantly that involved everyone. You would have people of faith with concerned scientists, labor unions with corporate America, then like a kaleidoscope, different groups, farmers. You had every aspect of our lives. Venture capitalists, because we knew we had to attract private money in to make this a big success. So we'd have a table of like 50 people around it so that we heard from everyone. Quite frankly, that was not true of every initiative that came down the pike on climate, but it was true on ours. So what they did was they put together a list of legislation, and that when we did the Inflation Reduction Act, that was the name that one of the members wanted to call it. So Inflation Reduction Act, we had the legislation ready to go in there, and it involved things that related to the credits so that it could in fact attract capital and go forward. $378 billion to address the climate crisis. No country, including our own, had ever seen anything like that in terms of allocation of resources or allocation of credit and whatever it is. And it was phenomenal. As a sidebar, also, since we were leaving the station, and since we weren't going to get any Republican votes anyway, we also had a provision in there that was a health issue, which said Secretary of HHS had the power to negotiate for lower prescription drug prices, and it brought down the price of many prescription drugs, but certainly not all, and much more needs to be done. But that's part of what the incoming administration undid with the resources and the rest. But we'll get that back because it has to be public, private. It has to have the input of everyone, and has to have a recognition that, yes, some people will have to be changing jobs. Ours was not one that said, if you work for an oil company, you won't have a job in 10 years. No, we'll see what that evolution is. But the fact is, we are ridding ourselves of our dependence on fossil fuels. And quite frankly, fossil fuels are one of the reasons that we are in Iran right now, today, sad to say. War is a terrible thing for children and other living things. It's horrible on the environment. But when the purpose of it is access to oil, when we're trying to reduce our dependence on oil, we just do not have shared values. If the purpose of it is to stop the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, a nuclear weapon, the development of a nuclear weapon, let's do that diplomatically, but let's not go to war.
Speaker, we happen to be speaking today. Right now, we're coming up against a deadline that the president has put forth to annihilate a civilization if his demands to open the Strait of Hormuz are not met. Because you have linked climate to oil, what do you make of what is happening right now and this deadline that's fast approaching as we sit here?
Well, I brought my statement, so I'm going to read it to you. So I say it briefly. Okay. Here's what it says. This is the person in the White House says this. He said, "A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again." Donald Trump's instability is more clear and dangerous than ever. Can you imagine somebody saying that? A civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back. The President of the United States? So Donald Trump's instability is more clear and dangerous than ever if the Vice President and the Cabinet are not willing to invoke the 25th Amendment to restore sanity. Congress must act to end this war. And that's what we must do. I mean, I don't think they should have a nuclear weapon. Barack Obama set forth a virtuoso performance of diplomacy and science and all the rest to have the agreement, the nuclear agreement, which this occupant of the White House threw out and decided to go to war. So we're in a very dangerous situation. You even had the Pope speaking out about this war. Other countries are, what is going on? Why is he saying we're going to destroy the civilization? When I hear civilization, that to me also sounds like the children. If they go in there and bomb, you're not supposed to endanger civilians in warfare. You're not. That's a war crime. That's a war crime.
Speaker, what do you say to voters and residents who look at Congress in action, not weighing in on purse strings or on war declarations? Many believe they've abdicated their duties. What is happening with our Congress? What should they be doing?
Well, it is an abdication of responsibility, and it is a Republican abdication. I don't mean to sound political. I'm just telling you what it is. Here's the thing. The beauty of our Constitution and the wisdom of our founders was the exquisite beauty in the Constitution that they put was the separation of power. They did not want a monarch. They did not want a king. So they separated power. Article 1, the legislative branch. We consider that the premier branch of government, the legislative branch, the House and the Senate. Article 2, the executive branch. Legislative legislates, executive executes the law, and then the judiciary. They foresaw that there could be a rogue president, but they couldn't foresee really that there would be a rogue president and a rogue Congress. So when you read the writings of our founders, when you read their writings, they said, we'll elect the president for 4 years, okay, but the Congress can't be for 4 years. We want the Congress, the House, to be for 2 years so that it can comment on the president. It could act upon what he's doing. And here we are. Not to get political to go into a special election, but we are in a normal election, in the off year election, off year from the presidential, by design, because the founders wanted a public comment on what the president was doing. Usually it's not as drastic as this, as somebody calling for the destruction of civilization, it's a little more on the sane scale of things. Differences of opinion, which you respect. We're a democracy. We have difference of opinion. So when the speaker says he just does what the president wants, they've abdicated the beauty of the Constitution, which is separation of power. It doesn't mean you can't agree with the president or come to terms though in legislation or something, but to just say we abdicate, which is what they have done. It's really tragic, but we fully, I won't go into politics, but we intend, there's a remedy. The antidote to poison in politics is just to win the election. That's all I'll say about politics.
We'll get to that as well. In the meantime, as so much instability is playing out on the world stage right now as we speak, you know that everything that you fought so hard for with climate and other things has been under attack. I talked about Trump rescinding the 2009 endangerment finding. He's closed down all 10 EPA regional environmental justice offices, killed the Justice 40 program. This is legislation designed to protect the communities that you really fought hard for, that are now more exposed than ever. How alarming to you, and what is our way back?
Well, let me just say that many of the pieces of legislation you're referencing, or the initiatives that you're referencing, were bipartisan. They had an origin in a bipartisan. In California, many environmentalists were Republicans too, in elective office I'm talking about, certainly in the population, but in the elective. So for them to undo those things, some of those things happened under Richard Nixon, imagine. So whether you're talking about the Endangered Species Act or the EPA, or to go all the way up to Joe Biden in terms of how we were always trying to give even more protection. But they have their hand in the pocket of the fossil fuel industry. That's just what it is. And that's the only value system that they have. How do we do this? Even with George Bush, the son, we passed one of the biggest bills in the history of America, the energy bill of 2007. And it was, if you read it now, it's largely about renewables. He has a little bit in about nuclear, but renewables. And George Bush, he wasn't exactly an environmental president, but he knew that when we went forward, we had to go forward in that way. So what they're doing is, it's really almost heartbreaking, because see, I'm Catholic and I believe this is God's creation. So for me, we have a responsibility to be good stewards of God's creation. But even if you don't share that view religiously, you do understand our responsibility to future generations, and to understand that everything in nature is connected. So when they talk about the Endangered Species Act, and they have no appreciation for how important that is, and clean air, clean water, you name it, and all connected, there has to be a stop to it. And again, hopefully the repair comes back in a bipartisan way.
Well, the irony is that some of the investments from the Inflation Reduction Act actually went into red districts, where Republicans quietly championed it because obviously their constituents benefited by that. Is there a pressure point there? Is there a bipartisan opportunity opening there?
Well, we hope so. I see everything as an opportunity, no matter what it is. It's an opportunity. But what these members are seeing in their own districts is public-private partnerships or job creation all around saving the planet. Now, they never voted for the bill and they spoke against it, but they show up at the ribbon cutting or the groundbreaking, and they're hearing from their own constituents. These are jobs, these are the future. And again, they see part of the discontent, that the divisions that we see, some are just hopeless. They don't like women, they don't like gays, they don't like newcomers, they don't like everybody. Then some are just very wealthy people who don't want to pay any taxes or have any regulation of anything. There are not that many billionaires, but the ones who are there spend a lot of money in politics, which must be curtailed. And I spent the morning on this subject at the Japanese Museum. But in the middle, there are legitimate people who voted for whomever, who had real concerns. There used to be they're afraid of globalization. There used to be a factory down the road, and we all work there, and the restaurants and the sandwich shops and the drugstore, everything benefited from having that factory there. Now that's in Mexico or China. So they're afraid of globalization. Innovation. My father used to be a truck driver. Now it looks like I can't be because they're going to driverless trucks. That's just a minor example, but it's the mentality. So they're concerned about innovation. And what we did with the infrastructure bill, with the CHIPS Act, with the Inflation Reduction Act, with all those bills, was to make sure people knew that there was a role for them in all of that. They didn't have to even go to college. They could be tradesmen and the rest, but there are good paying jobs associated with that. But they hadn't seen that more clearly enough, and so they took a chance on a bad bet, and here we are. But we have to be sympathetic to people who may have voted that way because they thought it was in the interest not just of themselves, but of their families, that they would have a place to make a living in an economy. And there is. And that doesn't mean because we're protecting the environment or we're acting globally that is foreclosed, or because we are protecting the environment. There are more jobs. Green is gold, as we used to say. Green is gold. There are more jobs connected with all of this, new, fresh jobs. And as I say to young people, you can be on the forefront of this. You're in the lead. Another older couple of generations may stay where they are, but you are in the lead on all of this. So we have to see this as not only scientifically essential and necessary, but also economically the right way for us to go.
During the president's first term, President Trump's first term, you flew to Madrid to tell the world we are still in the Paris Climate Agreement. He's pulled out again this term, deeper this time. What does that do to our standing in the world, but also to the global effort to find climate solutions when the U.S. pulls out like that?
Well, it even got worse in the second term because for obvious reasons, but just with that, when he came in, that's when we went to Spain, as you referenced, for the COP session. And we went that time because he had already declared we were out, but we weren't out yet. Still had to have, we went there and say, we're still in. We're still in. We're still in. We had a big delegation from Congress, and people really appreciated that because the U.S. is big. We're important. We're significant. Actually, the Europeans were ahead of us in so much. When we were doing our select committee work, we were learning from the Europeans, too, about how to come together, how to collaborate with it. Actually, who was really good was King Charles, Prince Charles then. He thought that we had to save the rainforest, and that was his thrust on, and still is. But he brought together for us heads of corporations from all over Europe to come talk to us to say what would it take for them to agree. And they told us all they said is, come up with whatever you come up with, but stick with it. So we know what we're working with. But I just wanted to give King Charles no, so in the United States, it's hard. It's really hard. We were going to these early ones. I was in Copenhagen, and in Copenhagen, for that one, that was the time before Paris. Just to be very frank, the Chinese were not into this, and they were kind of buying up all the small countries to say, don't go along with America on this. And you had these little countries that were sinking into the sea who were siding with the Chinese for some reason or other. The Chinese have made great strides in protecting their own environment since then. You know, they've done big things to end pollution, not end, but reduce pollution, the growth of pollution there and the rest. I've been there on that particular visit of climate with the Chinese, and they've done remarkable things, but they were not, shall we say, evangelists on the subject. They just wanted these countries to vote against us, and they did. And now they were seeing the consequences of. So you see, I told 2 presidents of China, I said, go to Alaska. I want you to go to, you're in Washington, you go home by way of Alaska and see what is happening there right before your eyes, the melting of the glaciers and the rest. Because you may not border the Arctic, but you affect it. And so whether you're talking about the rising sea levels or the encroachment of deserts, the Gobi Desert, or the drying up of the great rivers of China, harming Tibet and all of that, or the all of the things that you know are part of all of this, it's going to have an effect on China. It has an effect on China, even though melting of the Arctic Circle used to be very white, and it's bluer and bluer and bluer. And I wanted them to see that. But on their own, because of for whatever reasons, they have taken some measures for changing buildings and things like that, which have, and high-speed rail, things like that, that have helped with containing the environmental damage of the climate crisis to their people, because they had terrible pollution there. But the thing is that the Europeans and others who were ahead of us on all of this were like, what is the United States thinking? Well, we weren't thinking. I mean, we're not thinking. What were they thinking? That we would walk away from the Paris Agreement, which was no easy thing to do. Now, no easy thing to do. It was hard to have countries come together with that. And then we walk away. We walk away from it. And was, in my view, being, God's steward and all that, sinful.
Yeah.
Very simple.
And Speaker, you said that any legislation that needs to be passed now with the minority power limited is going to take outside mobilization, protests, people raising their voices, organizations called terrorist groups more and more these days. Are we doing enough?
No. I mean, we have, whatever it is, we can do more. Thank you for that question, because this is where I ended my meeting this morning on the saving the elections. Whatever we do in Congress, like for passing a bill, inside maneuvering is essential and it's very important. But the outside mobilization makes it different and makes it better. So when we are doing legislation, that fact that people are speaking up is, again, it makes all the difference in the world, for the world. And if I were speaking to you electorally, which I'm not, but I would give you an example, I say to win an election, you have to own the ground. You just have to own the ground. You get out your vote. And to win on any of these issues, you have to just mobilize. Maneuver inside, mobilize outside. And it's there. Do you see the No Kings rally? You see that? Now, I mean, how fabulous is that?
But let me ask you this, Speaker. When you have an administration that's cut climate research funding, they've cut all scientific data, dismantled NOAA, when you don't have tools to measure a crisis, how do you respond to it?
Well, it is, and not only that, healthcare funding. I think the best dollars spent are science, and science, because it makes a difference. Well, if it's healthcare, it saves lives, the biblical power to cure, but it's also the biblical power to save the planet. And and all of these cuts in science, you just have to wonder what could they be? Pardon me for using this word in that relationship. Thinking. What could they be thinking? And I keep saying to the scientific community, rise up, rise up. You know, they have to rise. And they're like, their jobs are in jeopardy now. Their institutions are affected in terms of funding. This is a plan. This is not just a piece of legislation that will come and go and expire on one of these days. This is a plan. And you wonder who benefits from this? Their old friends in the fossil fuel industry, their friends in the gun industry, big gun money in politics. I'm not talking about the National Rifle Association making a political contribution. That's bad enough. I'm talking about big, dark money poured in from the gun industry. And I consider, when people ask me the three most important issues facing the Congress, I always say the same thing. Our children, our children, our children. Their health, their education, the economic security of their family, a safe, clean environment in which they could thrive, including freedom from gun violence, and a world at peace in which they can thrive. My whole why of getting into politics was for the 1 in 5 children in America who lives in poverty, goes to sleep hungry at night. But those children need things more than just food. It's about economic security and the rest. And the gun industry, 80% of the American people believe in background checks. 0% of the Republicans in Congress believe in background checks. So in other words, it's another thing where the outside mobilization went. So in the King's March, you had everything. You had guns, you had a woman's right to choose, you had the war, everybody had their own agendas going, but they had big clumps of people in every agenda. But now people say, well, what difference does it make? They're still there. Well, they're still there for now. They're still there for now. But it isn't lost on the individual members what is happening in their districts, because this was not just San Francisco, Los Angeles. This was all over the country in their district, the Republican districts as well, and they could hear the drumbeat outside their door. So in certain issues, when people hear, there's nothing more eloquent to a member of Congress than the voice of his or her own constituent. So when their constituents are coming knocking on their door saying, we know what you're doing, taking away Medicare, Medicaid, all the things that they're doing. Food out of the mouths of babies.
But all the polls show that the majority of Americans do not agree with the direction of this country, and yet those legislators aren't responding. They stick to the White House. Why do you think that is?
They're feared. They're afraid. What we hear is that, I don't know, you have to ask the Republicans, why would they do that? Some of them believe it. Some of them, that's who they are. They believe in taking down the Department of Education. You know why they believe we should not have a Department of Education? This is what they told me. Because they teach critical thinking in public schools.
Speaker, let me, because we have limited time, I want to get to some of the things we've been addressing here today too, which is the role that Hollywood plays in framing some of these narratives. They're mostly dystopian narratives. There's meteors destroying humanity. There's vampires and zombies walking around. There are positive films like Avatar that remind us of the sacred lands and the indigenous and how we stewards of that land. But what more should Hollywood be doing? What responsibility should Hollywood take in this role?
Well, but to enlarge the issue, Hollywood as a means of the arts, I do believe, and I say this every place, not just Hollywood, I do believe that the arts will save us, because the arts are a way of people coming together. You might be in this room watching a movie where you have nothing in common politically, but you laugh together, you cry together, you're inspired together by what you see. You find common ground. You may have nothing else in common, but you've found common ground. And you look at a painting, you listen to a concert, you see a movie, and there's something about the brain that somebody else could explain to you more clearly. They take in things differently when it's a story rather than a list of provisions of a piece of legislation. I mean, that's obvious, but nonetheless, it comes to them differently. So when you talk about Hollywood and you say, if you want to really change people's minds about things, show a movie. You saw that earlier today with the documentaries about how that draws people in. It was important to our founders. John Adams wrote to Abigail, and he said, I must study war and politics so that our sons can study medicine and science and architecture and whatever, so that their children were free to study poetry and music and painting, and I think he even said tapestry in there, things like that. There was an expanded freedom for them, but it was also a place where people come together.
Share
You know that.
common
I'll go to
story.
concerts and I think, oh my God, I don't know what this person next to me is even thinking, but we're all there. And then we laugh and talk together and this or that. And you might find at least respect that the person, and you have something in common. So what better place? This is the creativity capital of the world. Hollywood is. I mean, California is.
Yeah.
And that some here have used their imagination. The poet Shelley once wrote that the greatest force for moral good is imagination. And what better place than here? Creativity to bring ideas to people's minds in a way that they enjoy hearing, that might relate to one of their own experiences. So I believe two things. The arts will save us and young people will, because the future belongs to the young. It's theirs. It's yours.
Yeah.
They all look young to me in this.
Speaker.
And that is that younger people take responsibility for it. And young people understand the climate issue. I mean, when we do send our youngest members, our 20s and 30 somethings out, listening to young people in campuses and in urban areas and rural areas and the rest, they, climate, jobs, gun violence protection, LGBT respect for people's individual identities and the rest. But all of that is completely and totally at risk. So people just have to see a path. This is, and I always say, when people say, what path you think the young people should, talk to them, listen to what path they may want to choose. And I say to young people all the time, there's nobody in the history of the world like you.
Oh.
Just you. So know the power of you and the difference you can make for what you believe in, and working together with other people, respectful of their views, but also finding that common ground.
Yeah, and that messaging is so important, and that leads to how concerned are you about these mergers that are taking place? The MAGA influence on our legacy papers, many of them collapsing, influence on content being produced or not produced here in Hollywood. The FCC being weaponized against those who challenge narratives of the administration, assaults on the First Amendment. Should Congress be doing more to stop that, to change that?
Well, the thing is the law is in effect so that you can't do many of the things you meant, all because we need additional law for AI and those. But what the villain in all of this is that you have to have an administration that respects our antitrust laws, because they are there for a reason. And if you just say, well, no, I want to know who's going to let my son invest in this or whatever that happens to be, this is really appalling. Now, I don't know the merits of Paramount over Netflix in that. I mean, I know what I read in the paper and the rest, but you can be sure from what the president has said that his friend has bought it and this or that. There's reason to be suspicious about whether our antitrust laws will be honored. There's so many stories right now of how fixers go in and fire people if they don't do what the president wants with certain mergers and the rest. So that's a problem. The other piece of it is that where is the First Amendment? Of course, in my view, the First Amendment and the freedom of the press, which I kind of put together, those are the real protectors of our democracy. That people can speak and other people can write about it, and that people can assemble. All of that is about what a democracy is, except if you don't let it happen. And that's what they're trying to do with expression in schools, with DEI and all the rest of that. It's heartbreaking because it's limiting in terms of opportunity for many more people. The FCC, who gave them the right to decide what entertainment is in America and what should be on the air or not? I guess Donald Trump did. Oh, I used his name.
Speaker. Speaker, in just a bit, you're going to be stepping out of public service after 4 decades. It's the end of an era. You've just been a tactical magician, unmatched in Congress, and yet yeah, please. You've also endured political violence, attacks. You were at the Capitol during January 6th. 2 years later, a man broke into your home looking for you and fractured your husband Paul's skull. When you think of all of your life's work, that you've worked so hard to protect the planet and the children, and to have so much political violence and rhetoric and weaponization, what does it do to help shape the democracy you feel like you're leaving now and handing off to a next generation? How has it shaped you?
Well, it's the logical thing. You want to think that you've formed a foundation that is strong, that others can build on, but you want them to build their own foundation. In other words, take it from here. But when I say, you talked about attack on my family and attacks on me, they were spending like millions and millions and millions of dollars on attack ads on me, which I think led to the assault on my home, because that's the evidence of a person who was. But anyway, not to go into that. Here's the thing. When you get into this, if any of you are interested in getting involved in politics, just know your why. Just know why you are going there. Now, my why was those children. So don't get in my way with the children, okay? That was my why. My judgment on people is, where are you with the children? If you're not there, I'm not there with you. So it is important to know why you. Is it the climate? Is it education? Is it fairness in our economy and addressing the inequities of it all? Is it justice in its many manifestations, whether it's environmental or social or judicial in the courts? Whatever it is, what is your motivation? None of what I have done would have been done without cooperation. See, I get credit, but it was the courage of my members to make the votes, to share the ideas, to think strategically about getting it done. Have your vision, know your subject, think strategically about it, show people what is in your heart, and you will be able to lead or accomplish your goal. So when it comes to the things that happen in our lives and the attacks, because, I don't mind the attacks, I don't care, but I do mind for my children and my grandchildren to hear scary things on TV to the nth degree. But I always told them, one thing that motivated me is a nun here in Los Angeles gave me this prayer. And the prayer says that there was a Presbyterian African minister, and he nailed this prayer to the wall in a hospital. And I think it was in Sierra Leone. And the prayer said, when I die and happily and finally go to meet my maker, he said he will ask me, show me your wounds. And if I have no wounds, he will say, was nothing worth fighting for. Well,
Was
I
it
think
worth
that what we're
fighting for?
fighting for is worth fighting for. So I don't mind my wounds.
And finally, you have often said that hope lies between faith and love.
Yes, I didn't wear them today because I left them in Washington, D.C., running out the door. I'm always running out the door to come to California. Faith, hope, and charity. People say to me, where is hope? Hope is everything. I mean, hope is hope. I say hope is where it always been, sits right between faith. If you believe in the goodness, that would be charity. If you believe in the goodness, love, charity, whatever you call them, you believe in the goodness of people, that gives you hope. It's sitting right there in the middle. I believe in the inherent goodness of the American people. Our founders believed in the inherent goodness of the American people. That's why they thought a democracy could thrive, because people were good. Now, again, we all have to have hope. And you look at any movement, civil rights movement, the rest, faith gave them hope because they knew there was a path at the end that was paved with goodness of the American people. So thank you all for your interest in saving God's creation, this planet of ours. Thank you to the Sierra Club for being the mobilizer that you have been, and all of you who work with them. I'm honored to be with all of you today. I'll be with some of you maybe tomorrow for some of this.
As you receive your
let us thank
2026
Giselle for being
Lifetime
such a
Achievement
wonderful
Award.
moderator.
Oh.
Thank you, Giselle.
It is my honor, Speaker Pelosi. Thank you
Thank
so much
all of you.
for
My
your
pleasure.
service. Thank you for your leadership as a woman, a powerful legislator, a masterful tactician. We are honored to have you here today. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
So I started this event saying how incredibly honored I feel as the Sierra Club's first female executive director to be hosting the amazing Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi, and you can see why. Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, Giselle. Thank you to every speaker who shared their time and their vision with us today. You remind us that the future is still being written, and we are the authors of this story. Thank you to all of you, everyone in this theater, everyone watching the live stream. It was memorable. You chose to join this conversation about what kind of world we want to pass on to our children. That choice says something about who you are. Please stay connected with us at the Sierra Club. Stay connected to this work, to the mobilizations the speaker mentioned. There's so many ways to participate. Please find your local Sierra Club chapter, become a volunteer, sign up for an outing to just get outside with people who care about the same places that you do. It's Earth Month. Visit our website to find an event near you. We have so many across the country with lots of our chapters. If you're able, become a Sierra Club member with a donation today. As I mentioned, if you can, a reoccurring monthly gift. Make sure that you're part of this fight every single month. That kind of sustained support is what helps us to continue to build and what powers movements. Remember what we are all fighting for, and that we still have to fight for it because of the people who came before us, for those who chose to protect the people, the places, the planet that they love. You can be part of that legacy to make sure that together we are leaving a better world for our children, for all of us. So have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you out there.
in the past, you'll be simplified. If he don't love you anymore, just work your fine ass out